The chaos in the chamber lasted for several minutes. Delegates shouted at each other across the circular room. Some demanded immediate military action against humanity. Others called for calm and investigation. The Vrexian delegation tried to leave but found the chamber doors sealed shut. Daiho had not moved from his position in the center, watching the panic spread like ripples in water. Chancellor Ralveth finally restored some order by threatening to clear the chamber entirely. His voice boomed through the speakers, overriding the translator systems. "Silence! We will have order, or I will suspend this session and deal with the humans privately." That got everyone's attention. No one wanted to be excluded from what was clearly the most significant event in recent galactic history. Commander Tovran pushed his way to the front of the Vrexian section. His scales were now fully darkened, a sign of aggression in his species. "This is an act of war. The humans have attacked our installations without provocation. The Council must condemn them immediately and authorize a full military response." Daiho's expression remained neutral. "Without provocation? Shall we review the evidence again, Commander?" Soman activated another sequence of holo recordings. This time, the images were even clearer. They showed Vrexian ships approaching Earth's solar system from multiple vectors. The timestamp indicated the date was 3 months prior, exactly as Daiho had stated. The ships moved with obvious military precision, maintaining formation as they accelerated toward Earth. The footage switched to internal communications. Vrexian voices spoke clearly, their words translated for the assembly. The orders were direct. Engage all orbital targets, assess defensive capabilities, withdraw before significant resistance can organize. It was textbook reconnaissance in force, a military operation designed to probe an enemy's defenses while inflicting maximum damage. "These recordings are fabricated," Tovran insisted, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Human technology is not sophisticated enough to intercept our encrypted communications." A new voice spoke from the entrance to the chamber. "Perhaps you should reconsider your assumptions about human technology." Everyone turned. A woman in her 40s entered the chamber, flanked by 2 guards in armor that seemed to shift and blur, making them difficult to focus on. The woman wore simple clothing similar to Daiho's suit, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. Daiho nodded respectfully to her. "Honored members of the Council, this is Yun Mina. She is our foremost expert on xenoarchaeology and ancient civilizations." Ralveth's antennae twitched with irritation. "We did not grant permission for additional humans to enter this chamber." Yun Mina smiled politely. "You didn't grant permission for any of us to be here, Chancellor. Yet here we are. Perhaps we should move past the question of permission and focus on the question of truth." She walked to the center circle and stood beside Daiho. Her fingers moved across a data tablet, and new images appeared in the holographic displays. These were not recordings of battles or ships. They were archaeological diagrams, showing ancient ruins on dozens of different worlds. "For the past 200 years, Mina began, my predecessors have been studying the ruins of the precursor civilization, the ancient species that established the Galactic Accords and then mysteriously vanished 12,000 years ago." Several delegates leaned forward with interest. The precursors were a subject of endless academic debate. Dozens of species claimed to be their descendants, though no one had ever proven a direct connection. Mina continued, "We found something interesting in our excavations. Genetic markers, DNA sequences encoded into the very foundation of precursor technology. And when we compared those markers to the species in this chamber, we found no matches. The chamber grew very quiet, but when we compared them to human DNA," Mina said, letting the words hang in the air, "we found a 98% correlation. The precursors didn't vanish. They simply chose to isolate themselves on a distant world to see if the species they had uplifted could govern themselves justly." The implications crashed over the assembly like a wave. If humans were descended from the precursors, then they had legal standing, equal to the founding species of the Council. Their claim to emergency session rights was not just valid but unquestionable. A small delegate from the hegemony, a species known for their diplomatic skills, stood carefully. Kelthax spoke with measured words. "These claims are extraordinary. How do we know your evidence is genuine?" Choi Hyunwoo stepped forward, his youth making him seem less threatening than the others. "Because we've been here before. 40 years ago, A human named Park Dong-yun sat in the observation gallery during your session on trade regulations. 23 years ago, another human named Lee Tae-young attended your summit on military non-proliferation. We've been present at 117 council sessions over the past 4 decades, completely undetected. The chamber erupted again. The security implications were staggering. If humans could infiltrate the council at will, what else had they done? What other secrets had they learned? Ralveth's voice was hollow. Why? Why watch us in secret for so long? Daeho finally showed some emotion, a slight tightening around his eyes. Because we wanted to believe in you. We wanted to see a galaxy governed by justice and reason. We wanted to think that when we revealed ourselves, we would be welcomed as equals. He gestured to the stasis pods still hovering in the chamber. Instead, the first action taken by a council species upon discovering our existence was to kill 40,000 of our people. Not to make contact, not to offer friendship, to kill us and see how we would respond. Soman activated the neural scanner attached to one of the stasis pods. The Vrexian soldier's memories played out in holographic detail. The assembly watched as the soldier received his orders from Vrexian High Command. The mission parameters were clear. Attack Earth's orbital infrastructure, assess military response capability, withdraw with acceptable casualties. It was labeled as an observation strike in the military database. Tovran tried one last time. Even if these memories are real, they show only the actions of one rogue commander. The Vrexian Empire as a whole did not authorize this attack. Daeho turned to face him directly. Then explain why we've intercepted communication showing that 12 species on the council, including yours, voted to approve this observation strike in a closed session 6 months ago. Explain why you all agreed that humanity needed to be tested before being acknowledged. He pulled up another set of documents, these clearly marked as classified council records. The vote tally was visible. 12 species had voted yes to authorize a limited military engagement with Earth. They wanted to see if humans could defend themselves before deciding whether to make formal contact. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The conspiracy was real and documented. A third of the council had approved an attack on a species that had done nothing to provoke them. Kelthak spoke quietly. What do humans want? Daeho looked up at the dome, at the stars visible beyond. We want you to understand something fundamental. You looked at Earth and saw a primitive world. Easy to test, easy to judge. You never considered that we might have been watching you just as carefully. He pressed a final control. The hologram shifted to show the space outside the council world. Dozens of human ships decloaked simultaneously, surrounding the planet in a perfect sphere. Each ship was sleek and dark, their weapons ports closed but visible. Admiral Hanjisu's face appeared in the display, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a stern expression. Ambassador Daeho, all forces are in position. Awaiting your orders. Daeho nodded to the image. Hold position, Admiral, but make sure everyone knows we're here. The display vanished. Daeho turned back to the assembly. You attacked our home to test our weakness. Now let me test yours. How will you respond when the primitive species you underestimated shows you that patience is not the same as powerlessness? No one had an answer. The humans had proven their technological superiority, their intelligence network, and their legal standing. More importantly, they had proven that the Council's moral authority was built on a foundation of hypocrisy. Chancellor Ralveth's voice was barely audible. What happens now? Daeho's expression was cold. Now we talk about the price of your curiosity. The night cycle on Velraxis Prime came and went, but no one left the council chamber. Food and water were brought in. Some delegates slept in their seats. Others paced nervously, making urgent calls to their homeworlds. The humans remained standing in the center circle, rotating between Daeho, Somin, and Mina, but never showing fatigue. When the session resumed at dawn, the atmosphere had changed. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a tense anticipation. Everyone wanted to know what the humans would demand and, more importantly, what they were truly capable of. Daeho began without preamble. Let me tell you a story about patience. 150 years ago, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. It was crude and inefficient, but it worked. We could have announced ourselves to the galaxy then. We chose not to. He walked slowly around the center circle as he spoke. We sent out observation ships instead. Small, stealthy vessels that watched and learned. We discovered the council. We studied your languages, your cultures, your technologies, and we made a decision. We would give ourselves 100 years to prepare before making contact. Choi Hyunwoo brought up a timeline on the holographic display. It showed human technological development over the past century and a half. The progression was staggering. While the Council's advancement had been steady and predictable, humanity's growth was exponential. We called it the Silent Century, Daiho continued. 100 years of development without anyone watching us. Without anyone knowing what we were building. You see, we had an advantage that no other species in the Council had. We knew what to prepare for. A new delegate stood, representing a species called the Nexari. Brelkoth was known for his scientific expertise. You claim to have surpassed our technology in only 150 years? That's impossible. The laws of physics alone would prevent such rapid advancement. Soman answered this time, her cybernetic implants glowing faintly. Not impossible, just improbable if you think conventionally. While the Council was refining fusion drives, we were testing quantum displacement engines. While you were improving particle weapons, we were building dimensional phase cannons. We didn't try to match your technology. We leapfrogged it entirely. She activated a demonstration. A small drone materialized in the center of the chamber, clearly just transported from the human ship outside. The drone flickered and suddenly occupied 3 positions simultaneously, each version solid and real. Quantum superposition applied to macroscopic objects, Soman explained. Our ships can exist in multiple locations at once, making them nearly impossible to target. We've been using this technology for 70 years. Your sensors don't even know how to interpret what they're seeing. Brelkoth sat down slowly, his entire body language showing defeat. The technological gap was even wider than anyone had feared. Admiral Han Jisoo entered the chamber at that moment, accompanied by a younger man in an engineer's uniform. The Admiral's presence commanded immediate attention. She had the bearing of someone who had spent decades in command, making decisions that affected millions of lives. Honored delegates, she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. I am Admiral Han Jisoo of the Human Defense Fleet. This is Lee Tae-young, our chief engineer. We're here to show you exactly what humanity has been building while you thought we were primitive. Lee Tae-young was nervous, clearly not comfortable speaking to such a large audience, but his passion for his work overcame his anxiety. For the past 80 years, human scientists have been developing what we call strategic deterrent systems. We knew that if we ever made contact with the galaxy, we would need to ensure our survival, so we built weapons. Lots of weapons. The holographic display changed to show schematics. The designs were elegant but terrifying. Ships that could phase through solid matter, missiles that could track targets across dimensional boundaries, defensive shields that redirected energy into parallel universes. Each innovation was decades beyond what the Council possessed. But weapons alone weren't enough. Lee continued, his confidence growing. We needed intelligence, so we built the Shadow Network. Images appeared showing the extent of human infiltration, not just attendance at Council sessions, but agents embedded in governments, monitoring stations near every major military installation, listening posts that intercepted communications across half the galaxy. The humans had been watching everything. Commander Tovran stood abruptly. This is an act of espionage. You admit to spying on every species in the Council for decades. This alone justifies military action against your world. Daiho turned to face him calmly. And yet, you don't seem concerned that your own government authorized an unprovoked attack on our world. Interesting priorities, Commander. Ralveth tried to restore order. Regardless of past actions, we must focus on the present situation. Ambassador Daiho, you've demonstrated that humanity possesses advanced technology and extensive intelligence capabilities. What exactly do you want from this council? Before Daiho could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Security officers rushed to their stations. The holographic displays automatically switched to show tactical information. Multiple Vrexian military fleets were mobilizing across their territory, moving toward human-occupied space. Tovran's expression showed grim satisfaction. The Vrexian Empire does not negotiate with terrorists. Our fleets will destroy your forces and reduce Earth to ash. Admiral Han looked at Daiho, who gave a slight nod. She touched her communication device. All fleets execute Protocol 7. The tactical display updated in real time. The Council watched as human ships that had been hidden in orbit around Vrexian worlds suddenly appeared on sensors. They had been there all along, undetected, waiting. As the Vrexian fleets launched, the human ships moved with perfect coordination. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The Vrexian ships were faster than expected, their weapons more powerful than the Council database indicated. They had clearly been developing military technology in secret. But it didn't matter. The human ships simply weren't where the Vrexian weapons fired. They phased through missiles, redirected energy beams into empty space, appeared behind enemy formations and disabled engines with surgical precision. In less than 10 minutes, 17 Vrexian battle groups were dead in space, their ships intact but completely powerless. Not a single shot had been fired that would kill crew members. The humans had simply removed the Vrexian ability to fight. The chamber was silent as the tactical display showed the results. Thousands of Vrexian ships, the pride of their military, floating helplessly in space. Someone spoke quietly into the silence. "We've been tracking your military developments for 40 years, Commander. We knew about your secret weapons research. We knew about your expanded fleet production. We knew everything, and we planned for all of it." Tovran's scales had gone pale, a sign of shock in his species. He sat down heavily, staring at the display. Admiral Han addressed the Council. "Let me be very clear. What you just saw was us being gentle. We disabled those ships because we don't want to kill anyone. We could have destroyed them just as easily. Every species in this chamber has similar forces nearby, ready to defend Council space if needed. We know where they are. We know their capabilities, and we can neutralize them whenever we choose." Kelthax spoke carefully. "You're holding the entire Council hostage." Deho shook his head. "No. We're showing you the truth. You attacked our home because you thought we were weak. You believed that your technology and your numbers made you superior. You were wrong. We don't want to conquer you. We don't want to rule you. We want you to understand that we are equals, and that attacking us was the worst mistake you could have made." He pulled up another display, this one showing Earth's orbital space. The destroyed stations were still visible, the debris fields marked with countless small lights. Each light represented someone who had died. 40,000 people, Deho said softly. Scientists studying climate patterns. Engineers maintaining communication satellites. Families living in orbital habitats. They weren't soldiers. They couldn't fight back. They just died because you wanted to test us. He turned back to the assembly. "So yes, we came here with overwhelming force. Yes, we surrounded your home world. Yes, we demonstrated that we can disable your militaries at will. Because the alternative was to let you think you could attack us again with impunity." Chancellor Ralveth's voice was shaken. "What do you want from us, Ambassador?" Deho's expression hardened. "Justice, accountability, and a guarantee that no species will ever again attack another just to see what happens. The Council failed its most basic responsibility, to prevent unnecessary conflict. Now humanity will ensure that failure never happens again." The weight of those words settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The galactic order that had stood for thousands of years was about to change forever. The crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembly floor, catching the light of 3 distant suns. 47 species sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from insectoid to reptilian, from gaseous clouds to crystalline structures. The chamber buzzed with countless languages, all filtered through universal translators that hummed softly in the air. Chancellor Ralveth stood at the central podium, his 6 legs clicking against the polished stone. His compound eyes scanned the assembly as he spoke about resource distribution in the outer territories. The discussion was routine, boring even. Several delegates had already dozed off in their seats. Then every screen in the chamber went dark. The lights flickered. Security alarms should have blared, but there was only silence. When the screens returned, they showed something impossible. A ship hovering directly outside the dome. It had appeared without triggering a single sensor, without announcing its arrival, without requesting permission to approach. The ship was unlike anything in the Council's records. Its hull was dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Smooth curves suggested speed, but the vessel remained perfectly still as if waiting. Ralveth's antennae twitched nervously. "Security, identify that vessel immediately." Before security could respond, the massive chamber doors opened. No one had unlocked them. No one had authorized entry. They simply slid apart as if welcoming an honored guest. A human walked into the chamber. The assembly fell silent. Every delegate turned to stare. Humans were known to the council, but only as a footnote in the database. A primitive species confined to a single world, barely capable of reaching their own moon when last surveyed. They had no faster-than-light travel, no energy weapons, no reason to be here. Yet here one stood. Kang Daeho moved with calm confidence, his dark suit simple and unadorned. His face was unreadable, his eyes scanning the assembly with cool assessment. Two others followed him. A woman with visible cybernetic implants along her arms and neck, and a younger man carrying a data device. Daeho stopped at the petitioner's circle in the center of the chamber. He didn't bow. He didn't show deference. He simply stood and waited. Ralveth regained his composure. This is a closed session of the Galactic Council. You have violated our security and entered without authorization. Identify yourself and state your purpose or be removed by force. Daeho's expression didn't change. I am Ambassador Kang Daeho, representing the United Government of Earth and the human species. I invoke the Ancient Accords, Article 12, Paragraph 7. I request emergency session rights for a matter of existential threat. The chamber erupted in confusion. Delegates spoke over each other in dozens of languages. The Ancient Accords were founding documents, created by the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel. Article 12 dealt with unprovoked acts of war. It hadn't been invoked in over 800 years. Commander Tovran of the Vrexian Empire stood from his seat. His scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. Humans barely understand nuclear fusion. You expect us to believe your species has standing under the Ancient Accords? This is absurd. Daeho turned to face the Vrexian commander. His voice remained level, almost conversational. The Accords state that any species capable of reaching this chamber may invoke emergency rights. I am here. Therefore, I am capable. Ralveth's translator struggled with the human's words, the logic too simple to deny. Even if we grant temporary standing, what existential threat could possibly involve a species as isolated as yours? Daeho glanced at the woman beside him. Park Soman stepped forward, her cybernetic fingers dancing across a control panel. The holographic displays throughout the chamber activated, overriding the Council's systems with the same ease that Daeho's ship had bypassed their security. 3 months ago, Daeho began, his voice now carrying to every corner of the chamber. Earth's orbital stations detected multiple vessels entering our solar system. They did not respond to hails. They did not announce their intentions. They simply opened fire. The hologram showed Earth from space, a blue and green world spinning peacefully. Then the scene changed. Massive energy beams lanced through the darkness, striking orbital platforms. Silent explosions bloomed in the void. Debris scattered, carrying the bodies of humans who had been at their posts seconds before. 40,000 people died in that attack. Daeho continued. Scientists, engineers, families. They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were simply in the wrong place when your ships decided to test our defenses. Tovran's scales flushed darker. Lies. The Vrexian Empire has no knowledge of these events. Your primitive imaging technology could fabricate anything. Daeho nodded to Soman again. She pressed another control. 6 cylindrical pods materialized in the chamber, transported directly from the ship outside. Inside each pod, suspended in stasis, was a Vrexian soldier. The chamber fell silent once more. These are 6 members of the strike force that attacked Earth, Daeho said quietly. We captured them when they attempted to land on our moon for reconnaissance. Their neural patterns have been preserved. If the Council wishes, we can extract their memories and display them for all to see. Ralveth's voice was uncertain now. How did you capture Vrexian soldiers? How did you even detect their ships? Choi Hunwoo, the third human, spoke for the first time. His voice was younger, less controlled than Daeho's. We've been watching you for a very long time, Chancellor. All of you. We know your ships, your weapons, your tactics. We know everything. Several delegates stood shouting denials and accusations. Others demanded that the humans be arrested for espionage. The Vrexian delegation called for their immediate execution. Daiho waited for the noise to die down. When it didn't, Somin pressed a single button on her control panel. Every system in the chamber shut down. Lights, translators, environmental controls, everything. For 5 seconds, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in complete darkness and silence. When the systems restored, Daiho was standing exactly where he had been, unmoved. "You will listen," he said softly, "because we did not come here to ask for justice. We did not come here to plead our case. We came here to inform you of a simple fact." He touched his own control device. The hologram behind him changed. It showed Earth again, but this time the view pulled back, revealing dozens of Vrexian military installations. Each one was marked with a red indicator showing structural damage and disabled weapon systems. "You attacked our home," Daiho said, his voice carrying a weight that made even the most powerful delegates lean forward. "And we have already begun our response." The chamber erupted into chaos as every delegate realized the same terrible truth. Humanity was not asking for help. They were announcing a war that had already started, and they were winning. The third day of the emergency session began with Daiho presenting humanity's formal demands. A holographic document appeared before each delegate, written in their native language. The silence as they read was absolute. "These are our terms," Daiho stated. "First, the Vrexian Empire will surrender its entire military command structure to an independent tribunal. Every officer who authorized or participated in the attack on Earth will face trial." Tovran surged to his feet, but one look from Admiral Han made him sit back down. The destroyed Vrexian fleets were still floating in space, a reminder of what resistance would accomplish. "Second," Daiho continued, "the 12 council species who voted to approve the observation strike will pay reparations equal to 10% of their gross domestic product for the next 20 years. These funds will be used to rebuild Earth's orbital infrastructure and compensate the families of those killed." Several delegates began protesting, but Daiho's voice cut through the noise. "Third, humanity will take a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full veto powers over military actions. No species will be authorized to conduct military operations without our approval." The chamber erupted. This was unprecedented. Even the founding species of the Council didn't have veto powers. The principle of collective decision-making had been sacred for thousands of years. Kelthak stood, his voice strained. "Ambassador, these terms are unreasonable. You're asking us to surrender our sovereignty, to bankrupt our economies, and to give humanity control over all military decisions in the galaxy. No council member will accept this." A new human entered the chamber before Daiho could respond. Zhang Wusong was older than the others, his hair silver with age. He wore formal diplomatic robes that marked him as a representative of Earth's highest government. 2 guards accompanied him, but they remained by the entrance. "Honored Council," Wusong said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "I represent the unified government of Earth, the collective voice of 8 billion humans. Ambassador Daiho speaks with our full support." "These terms are not negotiable." Ralveth's antennae drooped. "Representative Wusong, surely there is room for discussion. The Council has existed for 12,000 years. We cannot simply dismantle our entire system of governance because of one incident." Wusong's expression was carved from stone. "One incident?" "Let me be clear, Chancellor. This was not an accident. This was not a misunderstanding. 12 species representing billions of beings voted to attack a peaceful world to see how we would respond. That's not an incident. That's a systematic failure of leadership." He walked to the center circle, standing beside Daiho. "But we're not unreasonable. We don't want to destroy the Council. We want to fix it. The veto power ensures that no species can be attacked without justification. The reparations ensure that actions have consequences. The tribunal ensures that those who order atrocities are held accountable. These are not unreasonable demands. They are the minimum requirements for justice." A delegate from the Silvari Union, a species known for their philosophical approach to government, spoke thoughtfully. "What you describe sounds like you want to become the galaxy's police force. How do we know you won't abuse this power?" Yunmina stepped forward to answer. "Because unlike the Council, humanity remembers what it's like to be vulnerable. We remember what it feels like to be attacked without warning. That memory will guide our decisions. She activated another holographic display, this one showing human history. Wars, conflicts, near extinctions. We've made terrible mistakes in our past. We've fought each other, destroyed our own environment, nearly wiped ourselves out multiple times. But we learned from those mistakes. We learned that power without accountability leads to tyranny. We learned that peace requires both strength and restraint. The images shifted to show humanity's development of international law, peacekeeping forces, diplomatic protocols. We spent 300 years learning how to govern ourselves without destroying each other. Now we're offering to share that experience with you. A sudden alert interrupted her presentation. Security officers rushed to inform the Chancellor of an emergency communication from Vrexian space. Ralveth hesitated, then authorized the transmission to be displayed for the entire assembly. The face that appeared was not Tovran's. It was a younger Vrexian female, her scales marked with military decorations. I am General Kiravan of the Vrexian Home Defense Fleet. Commander Tovran no longer speaks for our people. Tovran jumped to his feet. This is treason. I am the appointed representative of the Vrexian Empire. Kiravan's expression was cold. You are the representative. The civilian government has assumed control. Your military council is under arrest for ordering unauthorized attacks without civilian oversight. We are broadcasting to inform the Galactic Council that the Vrexian Empire formally surrenders to human demands. The chamber fell into shocked silence. The military coup had happened in minutes, coordinated perfectly with the human demonstration of force. Tovran stood frozen, unable to process that his entire power structure had collapsed. Soman spoke quietly to Deho. The psychological warfare team did excellent work. The Vrexian civilian government was ready to act as soon as we demonstrated military superiority. Admiral Han allowed herself a small smile. Shin Mire's team has been in contact with Vrexian reformists for years. They just needed proof that the military wasn't invincible. Another alert came through, this time from the hegemony. Kelthax received the message privately, his expression growing more troubled as he read. The Hegemony Council has voted to accept human terms. We will pay the reparations and support humanity's permanent council seat. One by one, other species began receiving similar messages from their home worlds. The display of human military superiority had convinced governments that resistance was futile. More importantly, the revelation about the approved attack had turned public opinion. Citizens across the galaxy were demanding accountability from their leaders, but not everyone was ready to surrender. A delegate from the Korvax collective stood, his voice filled with rage. This is extortion. You come here with weapons and threats and you expect us to simply bow down? The Korvax collective will never submit to human dominance. Before anyone could respond, every alarm in the chamber began blaring. The tactical displays lit up with a new threat. Deep in Vrexian territory, a massive energy signature had appeared. The readings were off the scale, far beyond anything a standard weapon should produce. Li Taeyong rushed to analyze the data. His face went pale. That's a stellar converter. They're going to turn a star into a supernova. The target was immediately obvious. The weapon was aimed at Sol, Earth's sun. If it activated, the entire human home system would be destroyed. A new transmission appeared, this one showing a Vrexian male wearing the marks of an extremist faction. Yormak's voice was filled with fanatical determination. You wanted to test our resolve, humans? Now we test yours. You have 72 hours to withdraw all forces and renounce your demands. If you refuse, Earth burns. Tovran, still standing in shock, found his voice. Yormak, you fool. That weapon was never supposed to be activated. It was only a deterrent. Yormak's image smiled coldly. Deterrents only work if people believe you'll use them. Now the galaxy will know that the Vrexian Empire doesn't make empty threats. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted into panic. Delegates shouted at each other, some demanding immediate action, others calling for negotiation. Several species began evacuating their representatives, fearing that the humans would retaliate with even more devastating force. But Daiho remained calm. He looked at Admiral Han, who nodded slightly. They had planned for this too. 72 hours, Daiho said quietly to his team. That gives us time. Soman checked her data. Quan Sora reports that the sabotage is in place, but it only reduced the weapon's effectiveness by 30%. If it fires, Earth will survive, but 70% of the surface will be sterilized. Jiang Wusung closed his eyes. 7 billion casualties. That's what survival means, Admiral Han's voice was steel. Then we make sure it doesn't fire. Deho turned to the council. Chancellor, I need one thing from you. Keep everyone here. No one leaves until this is resolved. If anyone warns Yormak that we're coming, the weapon might fire early. Ralveth nodded, too shocked to argue. The chamber doors sealed again. Admiral Han activated her fleet-wide communication. All ships, this is Admiral Han. We have a new priority target. Prepare for deep strike operations. And someone find me Baek Junho. I need the best pilot humanity has. The countdown had begun. 72 hours to save Earth or watch their homeworld die. The clock showed 68 hours remaining when Baek Junho arrived at the council chamber. He was younger than most expected, barely 30, with the lean build of someone who spent more time in fighter cockpits than on planets. His flight suit bore the marks of countless missions, patches and repairs that told stories of survival against impossible odds. Admiral Han met him at the entrance. Captain Baek, thank you for coming so quickly. Junho saluted casually. Admiral, I hear we have a Starkiller to disable. Sounds like a normal Tuesday. Despite the tension, several people smiled at his attitude. Junho had a reputation among human pilots as someone who laughed at danger, not because he was reckless, but because fear never seemed to touch him. Lee Taeyong spread the tactical data across a holographic display. The stellar converter is protected by 17 layers of defensive systems. Shields, point defense weapons, patrol ships, and automated defense platforms. It's stationed in the Vrexian outer territory, which means we have to travel through 8 defended systems just to reach it. Junho studied the display with professional interest. How much time do we have once we arrive? 15 minutes, Somian answered. Any longer, and the Vrexian extremists will detect the attack and activate the weapon early. We need to destroy the control facility completely within that window. 15 minutes. Junho nodded thoughtfully. For 17 defensive layers and a hardened target. That's ambitious. Admiral Han pulled up ship specifications. We're sending 12 pilots in our fastest interceptors. The ships use quantum phase technology, so you'll be able to pass through some of the defenses. But the final approach has to be conventional. The weapon's core is shielded against dimensional displacement. Junho looked at the other 11 pilots who had gathered in the chamber. He knew most of them. They had trained together, fought together, survived impossible missions together. So we're looking at a suicide run. It wasn't a question. Everyone in the room knew the statistics. 12 ships against those defenses, even with advanced technology, meant at best a 30% survival rate. More likely, none of them would make it back. Deho stepped forward. Captain Baek, I won't order you to do this. This is a volunteer mission. If you or any of your pilots want to refuse, there will be no consequences. Junho looked at him with surprise. Refuse? Ambassador, 7 billion people are going to die if we fail. Where exactly would I go that would be better than here? Trying to stop that. One of the other pilots, a woman named Song Hana, spoke up. Besides, someone has to show these council species what humans do when our backs are against the wall. Might as well be us. The other pilots nodded agreement. No one was backing out. 50 hours remained when the strike force launched. The council watched through real-time feeds as 12 small ships accelerated away from Velrax's prime, pushing their engines to maximum. They moved in tight formation, each pilot maintaining perfect position despite the incredible speed. The journey took 30 hours. During that time, the council chamber became a command center. Delegates from every species watched the progress, united by the terrible knowledge that if this failed, humanity's response would be devastating. Earth might burn, but the Vrexian Empire would cease to exist. Quan Sora appeared on screen from her position embedded in Vrexian space. The intelligence operative had spent 15 years undercover, building a network of informants and saboteurs. She looked exhausted, the strain of maintaining her cover while coordinating the sabotage clearly taking its toll. The sabotage is holding, she reported. I've corrupted 30% of the weapon's focusing system. If it fires now, the energy will dissipate before reaching Sol. Earth will survive, but the damage will still be catastrophic. Can you improve the sabotage? Admiral Han asked. Sora shook her head. I've done everything possible without being detected. Any more interference and Yormak's technicians will find it and repair the damage. We're at the limit of what covert action can achieve. 20 hours remaining. The strike force reached the edge of Vrexian defensive space. This was where the mission became truly dangerous. Junho's voice came through clearly on the command channel. All ships activate phase systems. Remember, we stay phased for maximum duration to preserve power. Switch to conventional flight only when necessary. The ships vanished from normal sensors existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously. To the Vrexian defenses, they appeared as sensor ghosts, phantom signals that couldn't be targeted. The first defensive layer was a minefield. Thousands of automated explosives filled the space, designed to destroy anything that approached. The phased ships passed through the mines like ghosts through walls, the explosives unable to detect or harm them. Second layer. Patrol ships. These were easier. The human pilots simply avoided their scanning patterns, moving through gaps in the coverage with practiced ease. Third through seventh layers. Overlapping shield grids and sensor networks. This was where the quantum phase technology truly showed its value. The ships slipped between dimensional barriers existing in spaces where the Vrexian shields couldn't reach them. But phase technology consumed enormous power. By the 8th layer, the ship's energy reserves were running low. All ships prepare for conventional flight, Junho ordered. We're going in hot. The 12 ships materialized simultaneously, dropping out of quantum phase into normal space. Immediately, every alarm on the Vrexian defensive platforms activated. Weapon systems came online, targeting computers locked onto the intruders. What followed was a display of flying that left even experienced military officers speechless. The pilots moved their ships through the defensive fire with impossible precision. They rolled, dove, accelerated, and decelerated in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Missiles missed by centimeters. Energy beams burned past their hulls. Song Hana's voice came through, strained but controlled. Taking fire, shields at 60%. Another pilot, Nam Wubin, reported damage. Lost my port maneuvering thruster, compensating, but they kept moving forward. The defensive platforms designed to stop large assault forces couldn't track individual fighters moving at such extreme speeds. 15 minutes until the weapon could be activated early. The control facility was in sight now, a massive structure built into an asteroid. This was where Yormak and his extremists controlled the stellar converter. Li Taeyong's voice came through from the council chamber. I'm sending you the structural weak points. Hit these locations simultaneously, and the entire facility will collapse. 12 targets appeared on the pilot's displays. 12 ships, 12 targets, 1 chance. Junho took a deep breath. All ships lock targets. Fire on my mark. But then Song Hana's ship took a direct hit. Her shields collapsed and her engine detonated. She managed to eject, but her ship was gone. 11 ships, 12 targets, Junho said calmly. Adjusting. I'll take 2 targets. Negative, Admiral Han interrupted. That approach vector is suicide. The defensive fire is too concentrated. Junho laughed, that same fearless sound that had made him famous among human pilots. Admiral, with respect, this entire mission was suicide. What's one more impossible thing before breakfast? Before anyone could countermand his order, Junho accelerated directly into the heaviest defensive fire. His ship moved like liquid, flowing through gaps that shouldn't exist. He fired his weapons with perfect accuracy, destroying his first target. Then he rotated 90 degrees and dove toward the second target, even as energy beams converged on his position. His shields failed. His hull began to melt, but his finger never left the trigger. The second target exploded just as Junho's ship was torn apart. Target destroyed, he said, his voice surprisingly calm even as his systems failed around him. Admiral, tell my parents I'm sorry I won't make it to dinner on Sunday. The transmission cut off, but the mission wasn't over. The other 10 pilots had also fired. 11 targets destroyed, the structure fatally compromised. The control facility began to collapse, its systems failing in cascading waves. Inside the facility, Yormak stared at his screens in disbelief. This is impossible. No one could penetrate our defenses. His second-in-command was already running for the escape pods. Sir, we need to evacuate now. Yormak reached for the emergency activation switch, determined to fire the weapon manually even as the facility died around him. But Kwansora's sabotage had included one final surprise. When he pressed the switch, nothing happened. The weapon had been completely disabled. The facility exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The stellar converter, humanity's death sentence, was destroyed. In the council chamber, silence reigned. They had watched 12 pilots face impossible odds, watched one sacrifice himself to complete the mission, watched humanity prove once again that they would do whatever necessary to protect their own. Admiral Han stood perfectly still, her eyes closed. She had sent countless people on dangerous missions over her career, but this one would haunt her. 11 pilots made it back. One did not. Deho walked to stand beside her. He saved Earth. 7 billion people are alive because of Captain Bayek and his team. I know, the Admiral said quietly. That doesn't make it easier. Chancellor Ralveth approached them cautiously. Ambassador, on behalf of the entire Council, I want to express our profound respect for your pilot's sacrifice. We will ensure his name is remembered.